everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Just Learn Crypto Show. And today we're sitting here with Todd Lewis. Todd Lewis is a technical contributor to the free software project Epic Cash. This is a project that has come across my radar. I've seen a lot of people in the space talking about it. It is a digital currency, with a very high focus on privacy. So I'm very excited to have you here on the show, and just kind of teach me what it is, explain it to me. If you can explain all this cool technology in a way that I can understand it, then I'm pretty sure anyone else will be able to understand it. So awesome to have you here, man. Thanks for coming on.
It's great to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
No worries, man. So why don't you introduce yourself to anyone watching and maybe explain how you got into cryptocurrency and kind of like a quick path of how it led you to being involved with Epic.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a technologist. I live in Brazil. My family's Brazilian, and I've been involved in cryptography since the '90s.
Wow.
I'm an old guy, and so when cryptocurrencies came about, I started paying attention like 2010, 2011, 2013 or so. I got heavily into Ripple, and bought a little. Of course, not nearly enough, but really took a deep dive into the technology of the early blockchains, and thought they were cool. But I was working on my stuff. I'm historically more of a like a database high availability guy.
Okay.
Watched crypto, but didn't participate. Ironically, was actually a heavy crypto user, because down here in Brazil, our business, we used crypto for a few years as a way to make payments and get money around, because
Wow.
it was really convenient. It was really convenient,
Mm-hmm.
and really solved a lot of problems for us. So we were, all of us down here were heavy crypto users. But didn't chase the madness in 2017 or anything. Just like admired it from a distance, and it crossed streams with another stream in my life, which is anarcho-capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big Misesian. I'm a big believer in a free society. Mises and Rothbard, and the definition of money, and a Misesian view on the role that money plays in creating a civilized society.
So you consider yourself a critical thinker then? You kind of look at things probably in a different way than most people that just kind of accept things at face value. You're the kind of person that kind of dives into it a little bit more and questions things, right?
Well, I mean, like most people have something that they care a lot about and dive into, and this is one of those things for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And plus, I worked in financial technology for a long time, still do.
Okay.
And so when it comes to like market function and price discovery and, digital systems for achieving price discovery and doing financial things, I've a lot of experience in that.
That's cool, man. Obviously, the fact that you got into crypto based on technology and actually were using it with your business, I mean, that's such a different on-ramp into crypto than anyone really that got in 2017. I mean, the majority of people that were getting in kind of in that crazy alt season of 2017, it was all on speculation and price. They were in it to make a buck. But you actually understood the utility and the usage of digital currencies and were using it for your business. So that's really cool, man.
Yeah, the craziness of the boom and how much fun that was. It seemed like a lot of fun for a lot of people. We just weren't part of it.
Yeah,
so.
until it wasn't.
Exactly.
Cool, man. Well, listen.
I lived through the .com boom in the '90s, so this is somewhat old hat for me. Been there, done that, got the T-shirt.
Yeah, this is. I mean, I'm about to turn 30 years old. This is my generation's .com bubble, right? And or not bubble, but boom. And It's
Well, I mean,
exciting, man.
and in both cases, I think it's important to point out that sure there was craziness, sure there was excess, but a lot of great stuff got built, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
it wasn't just, you know, the tulip mania or the, you know, the South Sea bubble or some
Yeah.
kind of silly, you know, pure speculative excess. You know, in both cases, people are doing real work and solving real problems and building real systems of interest. And if investors get a little overly enthusiastic at times, well, that's their prerogative. It's
Yeah.
their money, you
Well,
know.
that's
I mean,
just it. And I think the biggest thing,
they're free to get as enthusiastic as they feel like.
yeah,
So,
and I
you
feel like the biggest thing hurting and people coming into crypto right now is just a lack of investor education, right? There's still people falling for Ponzi schemes. And, the only way to solve that is through investor education. And that's kind of what inspired me, even with this show, with the Just Learn Crypto show, is to sit down with projects that I think are exciting and have you just have a frank discussion where you can explain it to me. I don't have a technical background. I don't have a financial or economic background. Um, I'm a salesman. That's what I've made a career out of, doing door-to-door sales, and I've done that for almost 12 years. And I think I'm the perfect candidate as kind of a canvas for, if you can explain it to me and I can understand it, then other people can too. And that's the big thing is I saw a lot of people lose their teeth in 2017, with
yeah.
BitConnect.
Speaking of investor education, that was quite a wallop of it.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Well, listen, let's dive into Epic Cash, man. So,
Yeah, please.
um, tell me a little bit, kind of give me the elevator pitch of what Epic Cash is, and then we'll kind of break it down into I've got a couple things that I want to ask you about in a bit more detail. But what's the elevator pitch about Epic Cash?
Yeah, so my pitch, everyone sees the world through their own eyes, and so my pitch kind of recapitulates my experience with crypto, which is I was really interested in the earlier generations of crypto, and we strongly considered like basing our whole business on Ethereum, and there was an absolute killer that stopped us from doing that, which is the lack of privacy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, if we were to take payments from customers and make payroll out of Ethereum, everyone knows what everyone else is making. Everyone knows if there's a big pile of cash coming through, your customers can start poking at your financials, and that creates a lot of business issues. You don't necessarily want to be, want all your partners in every direction to have total transparency on your financials, because you certainly don't have it on them.
Yeah, and I think
Right?
that's something people misunderstand with Bitcoin and crypto is that, there are two sides to the coin, right? There's, the blockchain is, this permanent public ledger, which is incredible. And I think my first thing when I got into blockchain was I was like, man, they should do voting on the blockchain because, people need to have zero doubt that the result of an election or a vote on something, aren't altered or corrupted. But on the other side of that coin is the fact that you do need privacy in business. It's not the world's business, what you're doing with your money, how much money you have. So yeah.
Well, I think it should be your choice and under your
Exactly.
control, right? And because if you want to share financials with people, it's always possible to do so.
Yep.
But making that the mandatory choice for everybody is just
So Epic,
that's kind of right.
yeah.
So that's kind of where we were in our attitude towards crypto. Is this is really interesting and has a lot of promise, but we don't think it's ready yet for the kinds of use cases that we strongly care about. And then Max from the Epic Cash project turned me on to Mimblewimble. I started reading about Mimblewimble and what it is, and Mimblewimble to me is a total game changer.
So I've seen this term, and I understand that Epic Cash is using the Mimblewimble. Is it a protocol? Is it a technology? How would you describe
You can call it a protocol, or you can call it a protocol or an algorithm.
Okay, so pretend I'm an idiot. It won't be hard. Explain what Mimblewimble does.
Yeah, so everything that Mimblewimble does can be understood with 8th grade math. And Mimblewimble is an application of what's called elliptic curve cryptography. But elliptic curve cryptography is really just exponents on some kind. exponential equations that generate some kind of elliptic curve geometrically.
Okay.
So if you go back to, like, I strongly remember this as all the crap in algebra 2 that I didn't care about. Mm-hmm. When they're like talking about the difference between parabolas and ellipses, and they're showing the quadratic equations that knock them out. It's it's not calculus, it's not super advanced or anything, but it's just kind of blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
And in 10th grade, your teacher told you there will come a day when you will strongly care about the difference between a parabolic curve and an elliptic curve, and when it does, you'll be sorry that you weren't listening today. And here's the good news: today is still not that day. Like, it still doesn't matter.
Yeah. So Mimblewimble is a large thing involved with Epic Cache, but what does it do? What does Mimblewimble do, and why does it make Epic Cache a better curve?
So an elliptic curve is just an ax squared plus bx plus c. It's just an algebraic equation, which in Mimblewimble they use these primitives from elliptic curve cryptography to create opaque transactions on the blockchain. And this is a beautiful, beautiful hack. In the best sense of the word, right? In terms of a really clever application of a tool. And I still haven't gone back and read a refresher on elliptic curves. It's been 8 years since I've read anything about them. But when you look at the definitions of what Mimblewimble is, it's immediately obvious how it has two properties. Number one, the sum of the currency going into a transaction must be equal to both the output of a previous transaction and the outputs of this transaction. Okay. All right. So if $10 is coming into a transaction, then that $10 must have originated somewhere else on the blockchain, and the outputs must be equal to $10. So at no point can you put a transaction through that violates the integrity of the chain. Mm-hmm. Right. All you're doing is transferring ownership of these digital assets from one set of key holders to another set of key holders, right? From one owner to another. Yep. So that's the first property, is it maintains the integrity of the chain. Now, that doesn't explain where the coins come from in the first place, but they come from the normal place. They just come from mining fees.
So it's kind of like a layer that's put on top of typical peer-to-peer protocol on the blockchain.
Well, I'd say it's an alternative.
Okay.
Right. It's an alternative cryptographic means for doing your normal blockchain transaction inputs equal transaction outputs integrity. Right. Okay. So that's property number one. The magic comes in property number two. Property number two is, even though all of the inputs are from a previous transaction, and even though all of the outputs equal the inputs, and even though everybody can validate that, no one has any idea what the actual amounts are. Okay. And that is amazing, because the easy way to ensure that the two values are equal, that inputs equal outputs, and that the inputs are valid, the easy way to do that is just to look at them, right? Hey, look, I got 17 in, I got 17 out. Check, pass. Yeah. And that's the normal blockchain thing to do. But with Mimblewimble, the amounts are obscured but still validatable.
Okay, so I could send. So if I'm sending,
the content of the transaction is completely private to the parties, but everybody on the blockchain can make sure and have confidence that they're not just minting coins out of the ether.
Yeah, so it's still avoids the double spend thing, right? So, exactly. So basically, I could send you $1 million of Epic Cache, and that the value of that transaction isn't really public information for people, but it gets validated that on the back end that I do have that, and you're going to receive it. Does that kind of make sense or no?
Yeah, well, and we could extend that example, right? So you can send me two transactions. Okay. One is $1 million and one is 10 cents.
Yep.
Okay. And in both cases, everybody on the chain can ensure that you actually own that money, right? But otherwise, they cannot tell the difference between the two. They have no ability to understand the scope of the transaction or even the identity of the sender or the receiver.
Yes. So this gives a lot of privacy with transactions, right? And that's definitely something that's lacking with a lot of projects right now. So The other thing that I've heard about Epic Cash and I don't really understand was something like they mesh all the coins up or something. Like there's some sort of like, and I know there's a name. Is that Dandelion or some? I don't know, man.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. Wow. Okay,
It
cool.
is called Dandelion. Yeah.
Jeez,
The
look at
so
me.
rocking it out, man. Yeah. So this is similar to like BitTorrent or the Onion router. It's just a way to have a distributed network that obscures the source of a given transaction, right?
Okay.
Because you inject it in one place and it gets passed around to other places, and the integrity comes not from who sent it in, but whether it has a signature on it.
Yeah.
So, you can do the whole, imagine being in junior high school and you're pass a note to your friend, they pass a note to their friend, the teacher snatches it. Well, there's no signature on it, so you can't prove where it came from,
Yeah.
right? And so you can sort of pass it around, and it's not clear what the origin is.
Awesome.
And it's an anonymization layer.
That was
And
an amazing way to explain.
And what I would point out about that stuff is, I think it's good. I think it's helpful. I think it's better than nothing. But there are ways to track that kind of network activity depending on how paranoid you want to be.
Yeah.
And people who have a strong need for piracy should really take a look at whether Dandelion is enough for what they need, or whether they want to be putting more anonymization on top.
Okay.
All right. So, for example, you can rent a tiny virtual in a cloud and proxy your transactions from there. And then the only people who know are the billing authorities on the cloud, or anyone who's surveilling the network. So those kinds of layers that would be put on top to anonymize transactions are something I think, if you care about your privacy, it's important to you, either because of principle or for business reasons, then you really should be doing an analysis of, is this tool sufficient? Do I need more tools? Do I need different kinds of solutions? And Dandelion is a good tool, but it's important not just to go, not to say, oh, therefore it's perfect.
It's not the end all be all.
Yeah, exactly. It's
awesome,
a nice to have, but then everybody who cares a lot about privacy should judge for themselves what the privacy level is and what they need to do.
So what exactly makes Epic Cash more private than Monero, or any of the other privacy coins out there?
It's Mimblewimble.
It is, okay.
Right. It is Mimblewimble. It's just that simple.
Cool.
Mimblewimble is a fundamentally different approach to achieving cryptography. It's simpler. And simpler in cryptography usually means more powerful. In this case, it definitely does.
Awesome.
The privacy properties in Mimblewimble can be understood with junior high math, right? And it rests simply on the basic properties of elliptic curves, that exponents are hard to reverse engineer. If I take the number like 1,200,019 and raise it to the exponent of 9 billion, and 470,013. And then I give you the result of that, it's going to be hard to factor.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to be hard to reverse that computation. And that's not very hard to see. All you have to do is sit down with a pencil on a piece of paper and try to do it. And you'll see that figuring out the exponent is much easier than reverse engineering the exponent.
Yeah.
And that's and Mimblewimble's use of that property of exponents in the framework of elliptic curve cryptography to create privacy is simple. You can read it and understand it, and it's immediately obvious how it creates those privacy properties while still maintaining the integrity of the chain.
Cool.
And that's the thing that made a huge impression on me. Is it's not a traditional blockchain infrastructure with a complicated privacy layer on top, which is what I think a lot of the earlier privacy coins are. Instead, it's a much deeper kind of solution, of an integrated solution of a fundamentally new cryptographic approach to how you do the blockchain, and then privacy just magically appears as a property of that algorithm.
Wow.
Right? And so I'm just from an engineering perspective, I believe much more in simple things where I can immediately see where the property comes from, right? Anytime you have layers of complicated thing on top of complicated thing, I'm like, oh, geez, there's a lot of scope there for stuff to go wrong, right?
Yeah.
But
All
if
right,
I can,
I've got a big question for you, okay?
yeah,
So I mean, we saw this over the last few years, this coin's the new Bitcoin. This one's going to be the new Bitcoin, right? So, I've been seeing people make that same claim about Epic Cash, and obviously, I want to
I'm not one
know.
of those people.
That's fine, and you know what?
Yeah.
I don't, I'm not a maximalist in any way. I think there's plenty of podiums for people to stand on. So what I want to know though is, what flaws does Bitcoin have that, and in which ways is Epic Cash, better than Bitcoin in certain ways?
Yeah, sure. So, uh, uh, Bitcoin is great for what it was and
Yep.
what it is, right? And I'm a Bitcoin user. I use Bitcoin every month. It's fantastic stuff.
Love it.
And this also goes back to my whole personal approach of not really being a speculator, that not being my angle in terms of what I find interesting about crypto. The Bitcoin may be going to 1 million. I don't have a view, man. Right? I'm kind of a humble guy in terms of my ability to tell the future.
Yeah.
So what's interesting to me about Epic is much deeper than the next 24 months of price movement. Right. What's interesting to me about Epic is the early coins, which I would consider Bitcoin the most obvious example of, I think demonstrated the promise of blockchain, but without solving all the problems that need to be solved in order for blockchain to make its promise come true.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, I view this as kind of a grand narrative. I view Wimble as potentially the culmination of a 5,000-year revolution in human society, which is the advent of money.
Yeah.
Right. Money is arguably the single most important advance in the history of human civilization.
Yeah. One of my favorite lines that I ever heard Andreas Antonopoulos say was, some people would argue that, he talks firstly about money being a language, and he said, some people would argue that writing was invented to keep track of money, right? So money
There's a lot of historical evidence for that.
Right. So money predates writing. It predates language, right? So language was created out of the necessity of keeping track of debts and money. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And that was one of the lines that got me down the rabbit hole in crypto back in 2016. I was, I never thought of money that way. I never thought of any of this stuff that way. And, then diving into Bitcoin. So, Epic Cash, I see, I've done a bit of research. So, I'm going to shill some of this stuff out here for anyone listening. So, the ticker for Epic Cash is EPIC, Epic. Epic has 60-second block times compared to its 10 minutes, right? With Bitcoin. So, 10% the time. They have 1 megabyte blocks. What's the Bitcoin blocks?
I don't know offhand. Actually.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, man. I don't focus too much on that side of stuff.
Our data consumption and transactions has a really good size property as well. So it's not just apples to apples. We can fit. Our apples are smaller, so we can fit more of them in the same size card.
Yeah. So Epic Cash was fairly launched. You guys did no pre-mine, no ICO. There's no Satoshi Nakamoto holding 1 million coins. The
initial money supply was precisely zero.
It was precisely zero, and then the final supply is going to be 21 million, which is identical to the Bitcoin final supply. The Genesis block, so the very first block that was mined for Epic Cash, was on September 2nd, 2019. So this project's not even a month old, right?
Yep.
So that's super exciting, man. And I mean, that's the big thing people, because I like to share things that I'm interested in on social media, and, with the knowledge that people are going to, question it, and, I'm going to receive some, interest in it. The big thing now is, people are always saying, oh, it's not on CoinMarketCap, it's only on 2 exchanges. And it's like, bro, it's not even a month old. This is like, I mean, imagine what people were saying about Bitcoin in 2009, right? Like this is an opportunity potentially to get in on something before it does gain a lot of traction in the media. And I always say, you ask any, and I've heard this from, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, some of the smartest people in the world, by the time you're hearing about it, by the time it's on the news, it's too late.
Yeah, I mean, let me tell you why I really don't like worry about any of those things. All right, and because it's the 5,000-year story, right? And why Epic is important, because I've seen hundreds of projects come and go, and this is the first one that I had a major participation in. And the reason is, money is the essential precursor to commerce, right? Money lets humanity break out of the constraints of barter and achieve universal exchange. And this allows just a vast leap in the efficiency of the economy. It's a huge improvement in our ability to take the riches that nature gives us and turn them into solutions for people's problems.
Yep.
And this has been going on for thousands of years. It is the engine to pull people out of poverty.
Yep.
And we are within spitting distance of finishing that revolution on this planet.
Wow.
But we still have somewhere between 1 billion and 2 billion people who are unbanked, who do not have access to good facilities for banking, for commerce, for payments, right? Who don't have access to international markets, who don't have the ability to take international payments.
Yep.
And
don't even have access to records. These people that don't even have land titles can't prove ownership of anything. And I think that's another big utility as well for this stuff, right?
I think so too, but in a world where, throughout Africa, you can order a tablet for $50 from China off of AliExpress.
Yep.
Right? Like we have the tools for extending money to
the unbanked,
to the unbanked people of this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And Bitcoin, I think, will go down in history for having shown the promise of this system.
Yeah.
But if I'm in a low security, low income, cloistered social environment, the last thing that I want is all my neighbors knowing when I get a big payment in.
Exactly, right. It makes you.
I mean,
we've already seen people being kidnapped, held ransom, tortured, killed for their private keys. I mean, this has happened.
It's a non-starter. It's a total blocker on the adoption of crypto-based currencies, mm-hmm. right? And Wemble is the first adequate answer I've seen to that. It's simple and it truly and deeply solves the problem.
So Epic Cash is available on a couple.
Just let me finish the thought, because I'm like 15 seconds away. Right?
Sorry, man.
So when Max pitched me, he's like, we're going to take Wemble and we're going to turn it into the currency that finally seals the deal and brings money to all the people on this planet who need it. I was like, sign me up, man. Right. And that's what Epic aims to do. And it's a mission that I think we are well on the way to actually achieving. Wemble is the star, but the other details of the chain too, I think, are important in terms of, Wemble is a great idea, but it needs an actual chain to ride in order to take over the world. And we believe that Epic is going to be that chain.
That's awesome, man. I love the project. I think it's really cool. I think it's solving a lot of cool problems, man.
And like the thing I like to say is, Africa's first payments billionaire is going to be an Epic entrepreneur, right? That's where we want this chain to go.
Awesome.
Right? Is touch terminals throughout Africa of people who can do payments privately, cheaply, securely, and unlocking the engine of commerce to bring the billion people at the bottom of the income curve on this planet and bringing them into the modern era of being able to apply their talents in a way that unlocks value and creates wealth for everybody.
Well, and then that's the opportunity too, is from what I understand, anyone can mine Epic Cash, right? And I think there's so much power in proof of work. Just the whole industry of proof of work, of turning energy into value. And, people don't need to buy Epic Cash. People can turn their energy into Epic Cash, into value, and earn cryptocurrency, right? So can you touch on, I mean, from what I understand, there's 3 different mining algorithms for Epic Cash. People can CPU mine it. Can you just explain a little bit about the mining side of it, and how and why it's set up the way it is, and how it's a bit more, I think, susceptible to like a 51% attack?
Yeah, so we cover this in the technical white paper. Epic has a lot of blockchains have a fixed singular algorithm approach to proof of work.
Yep.
And that we think that creates problems at times. If there's a break in the security of your proof of work algorithm, it can be fatal to a coin. And revolutions and breakthroughs in mining can really change the economics in surprising ways. As the ecosystem evolves between miners and the breakthroughs on providing proof of work. So one of the goals that we had of Epic, we want it to be future proof. And you can be future proof in one of 2 ways. Number one, you can have perfect knowledge of the future and you can make perfect decisions at the start.
Whoa. You have a crystal ball, bro?
well, that's just it. We don't. So maybe other people are smart enough to do that. We are not. All right. So we dislike that strategy. But it's funny. If you look at the coins that have single proof of work algos and no way to change them over time, that is their strategy, right? We have knowledge of the future. This is always going to work. So that's why we're staking the future of our chain on this one approach.
Yep.
And like our crystal ball is not nearly as good as their crystal ball. We have a lot more doubts about what's going to happen over the next 5-10 years, and our ability to know that now.
Is Epic going to stay as a proof of work?
I believe so.
Yep.
I admire what proof of stake is trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still really early, and there are lots of practical problems with how proof of stake is being done today.
Yeah.
So if we can figure out how to make proof of stake work well, I don't think anyone has an objection in principle to it.
Yeah.
But it's not.
You got a bogey on your 6, bro.
You can go get water, buddy. Yeah. It's Sunday.
Yeah,
so,
no, man. I again appreciate you taking the time on a Sunday. So 3 mining algorithms, meaning, what does that mean exactly? Like,
so from block to block, the chain the chain switches from one algo to another, and there's a policy that determines the percentages of them. And the 3 are RandomX, ProgPal, and Cockatoo.
Okay.
Those are the 3 algorithms that we have. So that's, there's a current policy, but one of the big things we wanted to do was engineer the code base and the technology such that we have the technical ability to update the proof of work algorithms, change the allocations, and evolve the proof of work approach over time. And the reason for that is, if there are problems that come down the pipe, we want to be able to deal with them.
Yep.
Security problems, mining problems. It was really important to us to have that flexibility so that we can roll with the punches, and as unexpected things happen,
yeah,
we have the ability to respond.
So does that basically mean, if, say, there's a 51% attack on one algorithms, you chop it out and run everything on the other 2? Or am I not understanding that right?
No, hang on just a second. What, buddy? That'd be fine, but Daddy's on the phone, so scoot. We believe that MultiAlgo provides increased resistance against 51% attack, and I'll tell you the reason why. The reason is, when you do a 51% attack, what you're trying to do is exclude certain transactions from the chain.
Yeah.
Right. So you do a double spend, where you do the first spend, but then that first spend you're trying to exclude from your other fork. And that's the fork you do the second spend on, right? So the benefit of having multiple algos is, you can exclude a transaction. Say you have 51% on a given algo. Because let's remember, the way that you achieve dominance changes from algo to algo, depending on whether it's a pro ASIC algo or a GPU algo or a CPU only algo, right? A given miner who's capable of doing 51% is probably only capable of doing 51% for one of those three scenarios.
Yeah.
So he's going to go in with algorithm X and dominate the mining pool and control the block. Okay, well, we go to the next block and it's a different algo, right? And so he doesn't have dominance in that algo. So whichever transaction he's been trying to exclude is now going to get flushed out, right?
Okay.
In other words, he can't dominate block after block after block after block after block unless he has dominance in all three categories of algorithm,
Gotcha.
which is practically speaking much harder to achieve than achieving dominance.
Well, I mean, he'd have to have, a extremely large ASIC farm, an extremely large CPU farm, and have all that hash power to be able to do it. And a GPU farm, right?
Yeah. Whereas he only has to have one of those in a traditional 51% attack.
And it's like, and then it gets to the point where it's like, in order to have that much hash power, you're talking millions of dollars that have gone into creating these mining farms. Is it even worth your time and effort to direct your energy to do that, right? So cool, man. That's awesome. Like, honestly, man, like you're really explaining things in a way that I do understand it. So it's refreshing, man, because some of the projects that I talk to, it's like I'm like, explain it in a simple way, and they're like blah blah blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, cool. I still don't get it, but I'm gonna smile and nod. So what's next for Epic Cash, man? Like, what's some news that came out? I mean, we're not even hardly a month into this project. I've been seeing a lot of stuff. There's a GUI wallet that's out right now. There's guys are on 2 exchanges now. What else is new, man? Or maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so like short term and long term, it's it's hard to keep track because it's moving so fast. So the launch went really well. We had a few bugs, during the first few weeks, but it was all minor stuff, right? So like the wallet gets stuck in case X with an error message that's not as clear as it could be, and you have to restart, stuff like that. And most of it was driven by just the phenomenal amount of miner participation that we had out of the gate. We were blown away by how many people came in and wanted to be part of getting a piece of Epic during the first few weeks. So that was a little surprising in terms of just the scale that we were operating at. And you always expect at least a few bugs after launch, but I was really happy with how smoothly it went. We're adding a bunch of features, just user features for usability, right? Improving testing, improving documentation, adding support for exchanges. Is something that we're really happy to see happening. Lots of exchanges have been coming and adding support for Epic on their exchange. That's important for allowing price discovery and allowing people to participate in the coin.
Yep.
The GUI miner is a great community contribution that I'm surprised it happened so quickly. It's been really great to see that stuff. And then I think the direction we want to take the coin is, first walk, then fly, as Mr. Miyagi once said, right? Short term, we really want to make sure that it functions well and that the user experience is a good one, and that the documentation is sufficient, and the test cases make sure that we're delivering a good experience to the users. But then longer term, it's about adding functionality such that we're facilitating the mission. And the mission is to use Mimblewimble to provide payments to the people who need them. And that's a pretty different mission than a lot of coins, where their focus is first world people and momentum and is it popular and those kinds of things, which I'm sure a lot of people are motivated about that in Epic. For my own motivation, I want to bring payments to the people who need it.
Yeah.
And I think Mimblewimble is like it's such a good solution to that one last big problem of the need to control your privacy. And our intention is to make Epic into the vehicle that makes the Mimblewimble dream come true. It's just one step at a time in terms of solving problems and making sure the functionality works in all the different cases, a good experience, it's accessible, and then starting to add systems on top. Africa's first payments billionaire is out there somewhere.
Yep.
And we want him checking out our code from Git, and doing a build and then asking the question, what great products can I build on top of this thing? And being the engine to allow that to happen. And I think a lot of that is just, a basic quality story in terms of trying to be functioning well, trying to be robust. Our MultiAlgo strategy is, I think, a good example of that.
Yeah.
We had the good initial implementation, and over time, we're going to be making that mechanism more and more flexible while still maintaining consensus on the chain, which is something we're super excited about. And then one thing that hasn't come up that I think is important about Epic's identity is the foundation levy. The Epic Foundation is a charitable foundation. Part of the design of the chain is that part of the mining rewards are sent to the foundation. And the foundation is out there doing community building, making sure that security updates are happening, making sure that the chain has a means to stay vibrant into the future. And I think a lot of the older chains are starting to get the part of their lifespan where they're really feeling the pain from a lack of that kind of funding mechanism to make sure that they are able to do the things they need to do to stay vibrant.
Yeah.
And we view that as one of the big value adds that Epic has, is with that mechanism built in, we can have confidence that maintenance is going to continue, that the community is going to happen, and that we can do the things we need to do to keep the chain vibrant over time.
Smart. That makes a lot of sense, man. I mean, people need to be incentivized, right? I mean, there's no way that people would mine anything if there is no reward, and there's no reason for people to update things and keep on top of the project if there's no reward for them, right? So smart.
And instead of this is kind of a crypto anarchist point, but governance doesn't have to happen coercively from central governments. We all make choices in terms of how we do business such that we solve the problems in the right way. Mm-hmm. And so but one of the things that we really wanted Epic to be was a vehicle that people can have confidence in, that it's going to be a survivor. Mm-hmm. Right? That it's going to that we're intended to stick around for a while.
Awesome. Where can people buy Epic right now, man? Where aside from mining it, it's on 2 exchanges. What are the names of the exchanges that it's on?
I have no idea.
I know. Okay, so that's okay, man. That's all right. So one of them's like BuyHodl or BitHodl or
BuyHodl is one of them.
Yeah, I don't remember the other one.
Look, man, I was straight with you from the beginning. That stuff's not my angle, right?
I hear you, man. No, that's cool, man. So where would be? I mean, obviously, people can go to epic.tech, check the white paper out, download the GUI wallet. The GUI wallet was just released, so you can get that on your desktop now.
Absolutely.
There are, super active on Telegram. You can check out the Telegram group, t.me/epiccash.
And we also have our project page on GitLab. So, we're an open source project. We do all of our development out in the open. All of our development is driven from issues in GitLab. Anyone can open an issue. You can see our book of work. You can see what we're working on. You can see our release history, right? And one of the things that we really want to do is be an open, welcoming development community for people who want to be doing crypto development. Are you trying to be in this movie? Dude. Talk to you later.
That's not even a real football, man.
That's not even a real football. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, listen, I don't want to
yeah.
take up much more of your Sunday, man. I know you're trying to spend some time with your family. So honestly, man, it was amazing. All your explanations have been great. I really appreciate you explaining this to me. And I'm hoping that this is going to strum up a lot more questions from people that have been hearing the name Epic.
Well, hey man, let me tell you this much. If people want to, fill up your comments with a bunch of questions and we come back and do a Q&A session, that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, let's make that
happen. And maybe
happen.
that time I'll lock the kids upstairs before we do it.
Yeah, man. Hey, so listen, man, I hope you have a great Sunday. Thanks again for coming on the show. And if people want to learn more about Epic Cat, man, stay off your wife, man. How many kids do you got?
I have a lot.
Yeah, man, people can throw questions in the comment section. Thanks so much for coming on, man. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks for having me, man. It was great, and I hope we can do it again soon.
Cool,
All
man.
the best, Sean.
Cheers, man. Take care.
Bye.